Hi, Q-lers. Welcome to a new chapter in the roller coaster that is supporting FC Barcelona, where every match feels like a telenovela with more twists than a Venezuelan Kilburn. Today, the atmosphere is more charged than La Rambla in the middle of August because the 1-1 draw against Rayo Vallecano at Vallecas left a bitter taste, a lingering controversy, and a dressing room that, apparently, is on edge. Yes, friends, the situation is explosive, and not just because of the Madrid heat. Hansi Flick, the German coach who seems to have stepped out of a movie about strict boarding school headmasters, has put his finger on the wound, and one of the targets is none other than Raphinha, our golden Brazilian, who this time did not shine as we've come to expect. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because there's a lot to unpack, and we'll analyze it all like a paella at Barceloneta, calmly, flavorfully, and with all the ingredients. The match at Vallecas, the third round of La Liga 2025-26, promised to be one of those games that make you bite your nails down to the bone. Rayo, a team that always seems like a tough nut to crack at home, came out with a knife between their teeth, led by an Inigo Perez who seems to have given the team a dose of Red Bull. Meanwhile, Barça arrived with high morale after two consecutive wins against Mallorca and Levante, but with some doubts on the horizon. Could Flick maintain the crushing pace of his first year? Would LAMINE YAMAL continue to be the prodigy who works magic with the ball? And what about Raphinha, who has carried the soul of the Blaugrana attack for a season? Well, at Vallecas, all these questions found answers, but not always the ones we expected. From the kickoff, the match was end-to-end. Rayo, true to form, pressed as if there were no tomorrow, looking for gaps in the Blaugrana defense, especially on the wings where Bald and Conde seemed to be playing hide-and-seek. Barça, for their part, tried to impose their possession game, but something wasn't right. Raphinha, stationed on the left wing, was not having his best night. Every time he received the ball, it seemed to weigh on him more than a wheelless suitcase at the airport. Imprecise passes, rushed decisions, and two shots that flew into the stands as if he were aiming for the Bernabeu. The Q-lers in the Vallecas stands and those glued to their TVs began to furrow their brows. Come on, Rappi, you can do it, we thought. But the Brazilian seemed stuck in one of those bad days when even the coffee tastes bland. Meanwhile, Rayo was not messing around. ISI Palazón and Alvaro Garcia ran as if they were fleeing a bull at San Fermin, and Joan Garcia, the Blaugrana goalkeeper, had to pull out his best reflexes to prevent Rayo from taking the lead. A spectacular save from a point-blank shot by Reishu had us jumping off the couch shouting, "Bravo, Joan!" as if we were at the Camp Nou. This kid, who seems to have always been between the posts, was the unexpected hero of the night. But we'll get back to that. The key moment of the match came just before halftime, when LAMINE YAMAL, that teenager who plays with the experience of a veteran, forced a penalty that sparked controversy. Pep Chavarria, in a duel with the young winger, gave him a knock on the supporting leg, and LAMINE, with that cunning that is already his trademark, went down as if he had just won an Oscar for Best Actor. Referee Busquets Ferrer whistled for the penalty, and at that moment, VAR decided to take a coffee break because it wasn't working. Yes, friends, in 2025, with all the technology we have, VR went for a walk, and the penalty stood. LAMINE, with the calm of a Tibetan monk, converted the spot kick and made it 0-1. The Q-lers breathed a sigh of relief, but at Vallecas, it was chaos. Rayo fans screamed, "Dive," and the Rayo bench seemed ready to declare independence. Inigo Perez, looking like he'd just eaten a lemon, couldn't believe it. If you're already freaking out over this soap opera, subscribe to the Q's channel, because what comes next is even more intense, and you won't want to miss it. You won't see this on the evening news. The second half started with Barça trying to control the game, but Rayo wasn't ready to give up. Flick, from the bench, gestured as if he were conducting an orchestra, but his symphony wasn't in tune. Raphinha still couldn't find his rhythm, losing balls he usually controls with the ease of a juggler. Dani Olmo, who started as the playmaker, wasn't on form either, missing two chances that, on any other day, would have been certain goals. Then, in the 67th minute, came the hammer blow. A perfectly executed corner by ISI Palazón found the head of Fran Garcia, who scored unmarked, making Joan Garcia's stretch useless. 1-1, Vallecas erupted in joy, and the Q-lers were left looking like they'd just missed their bus. Flick, who usually has the composure of an English lord, couldn't hide his frustration. In the post-match press conference, the German dropped a line that resonated like a clap of thunder: "Egos kill the dressing room." Boom. That statement was like throwing a grenade into the middle of the Ciutat Esportiva. And although he didn't name names, all eyes turned to Raphinha. According to rumors, the Brazilian didn't just have a night to forget, but his attitude wasn't the best. Some media claim that when he was substituted in the 62nd minute for Rashford, Raphinha sulked, the kind that makes you think he's counting to 10 to avoid swearing. Others say there was even a clash with Flick on the bench, though nothing compared to the episode he starred in months later against Betis, where he pushed Ter Stegen and Flick himself in a fit of rage. But that's another story. The fact is, Flick wasn't happy, and not just with Raphinha. In the dressing room, the German coach locked himself in with his players for 25 minutes. An eternity in football terms. It wasn't a heated argument, they say, but it was firm. Flick made it clear that he won't tolerate egos or lack of commitment. If we don't play at 100%, we won't win titles, was his message, according to sources close to the team. And that's where the issue of egos comes in. Raphinha, who has been one of Barca's stars this season, with 11 goals and a level reminiscent of Neymar's best days, seemed to take this draw personally. His frustration was evident, but Flick wasn't willing to let any bad behavior slide. The German, who has turned Barca into an offensive machine, knows that the key lies in the collective, not in individualities, no matter how brilliant. But let's put ourselves in Raphinha's shoes for a moment. The Brazilian has had a spectacular 2025. After a summer full of rumors about a possible departure to make way for Nico Williams, Raphinha stayed, put on his work gear, and became untouchable for Flick. His hat-tricks against Valladolid and Bayern Munich are the kind of moments that make you jump off the couch and applaud as if you were at the Camp Nou. He brought goals, assists, and an intensity that made the team tick like a Swiss watch. But at Vallecas, something didn't click. Maybe it was the pitch, which looked more like a potato field than a La Liga stadium. Maybe it was Raio's pressure, which didn't even let you breathe. Or maybe Raphinha just had one of those human days, the kind where even Messi would miss a penalty. And here's the big question, was Flick too hard on Raphinha? Let's be honest, the Brazilian wasn't the only one who underperformed. Dani Olmo wasted 2 clear chances. Bald and Conde seemed to be playing hide and seek, and the midfield with Pedri and De Jong didn't dominate as they have in other games. But Raphinha, as one of the team's leaders and because of his reaction to being substituted, got the worst of it. Flick, with that German mentality of Ordnung muss sein, order must be, wanted to send a clear message: no one is above the team. And that, Keulers, is a lesson Barca has learned the hard way in recent years. Meanwhile, on social media, the topic is burning. Barca fans are divided. Some defend Raphinha, saying a bad game can happen to anyone and that Flick should tone it down. Others applaud the German, saying a firm hand is needed to keep the team at the top. On X, comments range from "Raphinha is the soul of the team, leave him alone," to "Flick is right, egos have sunk us before." And then there are the memes. Of course, because it's Barca, and without humor, we wouldn't survive. One of the best I've seen was a montage of Flick with the face of an angry teacher and Raphinha as a punished student in the corner. A classic of Keul internet. If this drama keeps you on the edge of your seat, Keulers, hit the subscribe button, because this is just the beginning. And on this channel, we tell you everything that happens in the Blaugrana universe with all the details. Don't miss it. Let's get back to the match. It wasn't all bad for Barca. Joan Garcia, the goalkeeper, was a wall. Without him, Raio could have won 3-1, and we'd be talking about a total crisis. LAMINE YAMAL, despite the penalty controversy, once again showed that he's 18 but plays like he's 30. And the point, though it tastes bitter, is not a disaster. Vallecas has always been a tough ground for Barca, with 2 draws and 2 losses in the last 5 visits, but what's worrying is the feeling that the team didn't meet Flick's expectations. The German, who has built a voracious Barca with 40 goals in 12 games, wants more, and when Flick wants more, nothing stops him. The Raphinha issue is not new. By the way, back in April against Betis, the Brazilian was the protagonist of a maximum tension episode. When he confronted the referee, he pushed Ter Stegen and even slapped Flick. At the time, the excuse was the refereeing, but the root was the same: frustration at not shining as usual. Raphinha is a passionate player, one of those who gives everything on the pitch, but sometimes that passion gets the better of him. Flick, who seems to have a radar for detecting attitudes he doesn't like, didn't hesitate to point it out then and has done so again now. But beware, the German also knows how to get the best out of his players. In a recent interview, Raphinha admitted that Flick convinced him to stay at Barça when he was about to throw in the towel. "I'll convince you in a week," the coach told him. And he didn't even need that. Raphinha stayed, and the rest is history. So, what happens now? Is this the end of the idyll between Flick and Raphinha? Not at all. The Brazilian remains a key piece in Barca's scheme, and Flick knows it, but this draw at Vallecas served as a warning to the whole dressing room. With the international break coming up, Flick has time to work on the team's attitude and fine-tune the details that failed against Rio. Raphinha, for his part, has a golden opportunity to show that what happened at Vallecas was just a slip-up. Because if there's one thing this Barca has taught us, it's that with Flick in charge, there's always a second chance for those who really want it. And meanwhile, the Culers continue with their hearts in their throats, because it's Barca, friends. Here, there's no middle ground. Either you're on top of the world, or it feels like the universe is collapsing. But if there's one thing this team teaches us, it's that you always have to move forward. So, Culers, let's keep the faith, because the season is long and this Barca has a lot of joy to give us. And if you want to keep living every moment of this Blaugrana roller coaster with us, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, because here, we don't miss a single detail. Culers, we're still here, with the echo of the draw at Vallecas ringing in our heads like a song you can't get out of your head. The tension in the air is so thick you could cut it with a butter knife, and the rumors in the Blaugrana environment just won't stop. The FC Barcelona dressing room is boiling, and not because someone forgot the paella in the kitchen. Hansi Flick, with his German teacher's gaze that brooks no nonsense, has made it clear he wants a united team, committed and without egos getting in the way of titles. But right now, with the draw against Rio still fresh, all eyes are on Raphinha. Our Brazilian with a samba soul, who in this match seemed to be dancing an out-of-tune tango. Let's dive into the details, because it's juicier than a good churrasco on Copacabana Beach. The final whistle at Vallecas left the Culers with a bitter taste, like when you order a beer at a bar and it's served warm. The 1-1 wasn't the result we expected, but credit to Rio, who played with such intensity you'd think they were competing for the last calamari sandwich in Plaza Mayor. The Barca players went back to the dressing room looking like they were at a funeral, and not without reason. Flick, in his impeccable suit and with that gravity that makes everyone sit up straight, wasn't in the mood for jokes. His post-match speech was like one of those work meetings where the boss says, "We need to talk, and you know it won't be good." But beyond the words, what's really got people talking is how the Raphinha case was handled, both on and off the pitch. On the pitch, the Brazilian had one of those nights where it seemed the ball was conspiring against him. Every touch was a bit more awkward than usual, as if he were trying to tame a beach ball instead of a football. There was a moment around the 38th minute when Raphinha received a perfect pass from PEDRI, the kind that makes you think, that's a sure goal. But in a twist even a screenwriter couldn't have dreamed up, the ball slipped away from him, and defender Sis shut him down like a bouncer at an Ibiza nightclub. The Cules in the stands buried their faces in their hands, and on social media, the first memes were already circulating, comparing Raphinha to a lost tourist in the Barcelona metro. It just wasn't his day, and he knew it. But what really made the difference was his reaction to being substituted. When Flick decided to bring on Rashford in the 62nd minute, Raphinha didn't hide his frustration. He dropped his head, took a few slow steps toward the bench, and, according to some witnesses, muttered something in Portuguese that didn't exactly sound like a thank you. "Thank you, mister, for the opportunity." It wasn't an outright affront, but enough for the journalists in the mixed zone to start taking notes like detectives in an Agatha Christie novel. Flick, who has a clinical eye for these things, didn't let the gesture slide. In the dressing room, his message was clear. The team comes first, and there's no room for attitudes that disrupt harmony. Imagine Flick as a chef in a high-end kitchen, demanding every ingredient be perfectly aligned so the final dish is a masterpiece. Raphinha, in this case, was like a carrot cut unevenly, and the German was not pleased. Now, let's not get it wrong. Raphinha isn't the villain in this story. He's a guy who has bled Blaugrana since his arrival at the club. A player who has shown he can be decisive in key moments, but at Vallecas, his body language spoke louder than 1,000 words. There was a moment, just after losing the ball on the wing, when he was seen gesturing toward the bench, as if asking the universe for explanations because the ball wouldn't obey him. Some fans on X interpreted this as disrespect toward Flick, while others defended him, saying he was just frustrated with himself. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between, but what's clear is that Flick isn't the type to let these things slide. The German is like that teacher who catches you cheating on a test and makes you repeat the whole year just so you learn the lesson. And speaking of lessons, the Barça dressing room is a place where you learn a lot. After the match, as the players showered and tried to digest the draw, Flick took his time to speak with each one. It wasn't a shouting match like a drill sergeant in a war movie, but a heavy conversation, like when your mom sits you down at the kitchen table to talk about your life choices. According to sources close to the team, Flick spoke one-on-one with Raphinha in a corner of the dressing room, away from the curious eyes of teammates. We don't know exactly what was said, but we can imagine Flick, calm yet firm, explaining to the Brazilian that his talent is undeniable, but he needs to channel that passion so it doesn't overflow like kava at a poorly calculated celebration. Raphinha, for his part, listened attentively, nodding like someone who knows he made a mistake but isn't quite ready to admit it. If this drama has you on the edge of your seat, subscribe to the Q's channel, because this is just the appetizer, and what's coming this season will be a Blaugrana feast you won't want to miss. Hit that button because here we tell you every last detail. Outside the dressing room, the atmosphere at Vallecas remained electric. Rayo fans celebrated the draw as if they'd won the Champions League, and for good reason. Stopping Flick's Barça, who came in like a stampede of buffalo, is no small feat. The Q's, on the other hand, left the stadium with a mix of disappointment and hope, because this team, even when not at its best, has potential that takes your breath away. Joan Garcia, the goalkeeper, was one of the few to leave with his head held high. In the 72nd minute, when Rayo launched a counterattack straight out of a video game, Garcia stretched like a Marvel superhero to stop a shot from Alvaro Garcia that was headed straight for the top corner. That kind of save makes you think that without him, we'd be talking about a loss rather than a draw. LAMINE YAMAL, for his part, was another who came out relatively unscathed. At 18, this kid has more nerve than a tourist ordering paella at a tapas bar at 11 a.m. His penalty, though controversial, was taken with a coolness that many veterans would envy. But even he, who is usually a ray of light on the pitch, had moments of disconnect in the second half, losing a few balls he would normally control with his eyes closed. Flick, who seems to keep a notebook where he jots down every mistake like a German accountant, surely took note of that, though he's more lenient with LAMINE. After all, the guy is like that favorite nephew you forgive everything because you know he'll go far. The midfield, where PEDRI and De Jong usually work magic like football's David Copperfield, also underperformed. PEDRI, who usually moves like a fish in water, seemed stuck in a tank that was too small. De Jong, meanwhile, tried to bring order, but Rayo closed down the spaces like bouncers at an exclusive nightclub. GAVI, who came on in the second half, brought some grit, but it wasn't enough to change the course of the match. On X, some Q'ls started calling for GAVI to start, while others defended De Jong, saying he just needs a few games to find his best form. It's the kind of debate that could last until the next Clásico. And then there's the VAR issue, or rather, its absence. In 2025, for the technology to fail at a crucial moment is like your phone dying just as you're about to order an Uber. The penalty incident involving LAMINE continues to spark debate, with Rayo fans convinced it was daylight robbery and Q'ls divided between those who think it was the right call and those who admit LAMINE might have overdone it a bit. On social media, memes about VAR range from images of a black screen to comparisons with the Wi-Fi in a village bar. But beyond the controversy, what's clear is that the draw left Barça with 2 fewer points than expected. And in a league as competitive as this one, that can weigh heavier than a suitcase full of souvenirs. Flick, who isn't one to give up easily, is already thinking about the next match. The German is the type who believes a stumble is just an opportunity to learn, like burning your tongue on hot soup but keeping eating because you know it's delicious. In this week's training sessions, we'll likely see Raphinha running as if there's no tomorrow, trying to show Flick that what happened at Vallecas was just a bad day. Raphinha has that fiery spirit that makes him special, and it wouldn't be surprising to see him score a spectacular goal in the next match, dedicating it to the coach with an ear-to-ear grin. If this Blaugrana drama has hooked you like a Netflix series, hit that subscribe button, Q'ls, because on this channel, we bring you every chapter of this adventure with all the drama and details you won't find anywhere else. Don't miss out. Meanwhile, in Barcelona, life goes on. Fans stroll down Los Ramblas debating whether Flick was too hard on Raphinha or if the Brazilian just needs a kick in the pants to get back to his best. In the bars, beers are paired with heated discussions about the fairness of the penalty or whether VAR should be retired. But one thing is clear, this Barça, with its highs and lows, is going to give us plenty of emotions this season. Raphinha, Flick, and the rest will keep making headlines, and we'll be here to tell you all about it. Culers, we're still immersed in the whirlwind of the Vallecas draw, spinning in our heads like a ball that just won't go in. The city of Barcelona breathes football, and in every corner, from the Boqueria market stalls to the taxis cruising down diagonal, you can feel the buzz of a team that, even if it didn't shine as usual, remains the center of attention. Hansi Flick's FC Barcelona is like a crime novel. You never know what twist is coming next, but you can't stop reading. And in this chapter, with the tension between Flick and Raphinha as the main plot, there are more layers than in a gaudy masterpiece. So buckle up, because we're diving into the juiciest details of this story with the same passion as a Cule singing the anthem at Camp Nou. In the streets of Barcelona, fans can't stop talking about the Rayo match. In the bars, between plates of patatas bravas and pints of Estrella, the debates are hotter than a St. John's bonfire. Some Cules, with the passion that defines us, fiercely defend Raphinha, arguing that everyone has off days and that the Brazilian has been the driving force behind the Blaugrana attack this season. Others, more aligned with Flick's philosophy, believe the German was right to crack down. Because in a team like Barça, where expectations are higher than the Sagrada Familia, there's no room for drops in attitude. And then there are those who just call for calm, reminding everyone it's only the third match day and the season is longer than an airport queue on a Monday morning. At the club, things aren't so different. At the Ciutat Esportiva, the atmosphere is a mix of focus and electricity. Flick's assistant coaches, who move like a perfectly rehearsed choreography, have been working on the tactical details that failed at Vallecas. One key issue was the lack of connection between the lines. During the match, Barça had moments where they looked like an orchestra without a conductor, each player playing their own tune. Raphinha, for example, tried to break through on the left wing but often ran into a Rayo wall that seemed designed just to stop him. Pates and Pep Chavarria, Rayo's defenders, played as if they had a radar for anticipating the Brazilian's every move, and it frustrated him. There was a moment in the 55th minute, just before he was subbed off, when Raphinha attempted a Ronaldinho-worthy dribble but ended up losing the ball and looking skyward, as if asking the clouds for answers. Speaking of clouds, the mood on the bench during the match wasn't exactly sunny. When Flick decided to replace Raphinha with Rashford, the TV cameras caught a moment that quickly became a meme on X. The Brazilian, as he sat down, tossed his water bottle with a gesture that wasn't exactly joyful. It wasn't a scandal, but it didn't escape the eagle-eyed press. Journalists, who seem to have PhDs in body language interpretation, were quick to point out that Raphinha was annoyed, and not just because of his own performance. Some rumors suggest the Brazilian expected more support from his teammates on the pitch, especially in combinations on the wing, where Bald didn't always overlap with his usual precision. But let's be fair, blaming Bald would be like blaming the bread for a bad sandwich. He's not the only ingredient. Flick, who seems to have a sports psychology manual in his head, handled the situation with the precision of a surgeon. In the dressing room, after his general speech, he took a moment to talk to the team's leaders, PEDRI, De Jong, and Captain Marc-André ter Stegen, who, though injured, was at Vallecas to support the team. Flick's message was clear: individual talent is important, but without teamwork, Barça won't go anywhere. And that's where Raphinha comes into the equation. The Brazilian, who has been compared to Neymar for his dribbling and ability to break down defenses, has a strong personality. One that can light up a whole stadium or, on a bad day, spark tension in the dressing room. Flick knows this, which is why his strategy is to keep Raphinha motivated but grounded, like a lion tamer who knows the lion is impressive but can't be allowed to run wild. If this Blaugrana soap opera thrills you like a last-minute goal, subscribe to the Cules channel, because here we bring you every detail of this football passion with the flavor of a good sangria at the beach. Don't miss it. Back on the pitch, we need to talk about the other protagonists of the night at Vallecas. Dani Olmo, who arrived at Barça as the star signing of last summer, had a performance that raised more questions than answers. The ex-Leipzig player, usually a magician with the ball, seemed to be playing on half-charged batteries. In the 49th minute, he had a golden opportunity after a through ball from De Jong, but his shot went so wide that a fan in the stands joked he was aiming for the chestnut stand in the corner. Olmo, normally a safe bet in the box, lacked sharpness, and it showed in the lack of depth in Barca's attack. Flick, in his mental notebook, surely made a note of this. Because if there's one thing that defines the German, it's his obsession with fine-tuning every aspect of the game. Condé, meanwhile, had a tough night on the right wing. The Frenchman, who has been a rock in defense this season, seemed to be playing with his laces untied. Isi Palazon, Rayo's winger, drove him crazy with his feints and runs, and more than once, Condé had to resort to tactical fouls to stop him. Cules on X were quick to point out that the ex-Sevilla player isn't as comfortable as a fullback as he is at centre-back, and some even called for Flick to try Araujo or even young Cubarsí in that position. But Flick, who is more stubborn than a Catalan mule, trusts Condé and knows it only takes a few adjustments to get him back to his best. In midfield, Pedri and De Jong tried to take control, but Rayo made it difficult. Inigo Perez, Rayo's coach, had studied Barça as if preparing for a final exam. His team pressed high, cut passing lanes, and forced Barça to play more directly than usual. This unsettled Pedri, who usually finds space where there is none, like a magician pulling rabbits out of a hat. In the 60th minute, the Canary Islander attempted a through ball to Lewandowski, but Lejeune intercepted it, seemingly everywhere at once. De Jong, meanwhile, ran like a madman to win the ball back but wasn't at his most creative. Fans on social media, always quick to share their opinions, started calling for more minutes for Casado, the young La Masia graduate who impressed in pre-season with his intensity and vision. And then there's Lewandowski, the Polish assassin who, though he didn't score, showed flashes of his quality. In the 70th minute, just after Rayo's equalizer, the striker received the ball in the box with a move that looked like it came straight from a YouTube tutorial. He turned and shot, but Joan Garcia, Rayo's goalkeeper, made a miraculous save that left the virtual Camp Nou in shock. Lewandowski, still lethal at 37, buried his head in his hands, knowing that on another day, that ball would have been a goal. Flick, from the bench, applauded the effort, but his mind was already on how to make the team more effective in the final third. Rayo, for their part, deserve applause. Inigo Perez has turned this team into a nightmare for the big clubs, with a style that combines intensity, high pressing, and a touch of cunning that makes them unpredictable. ISI Palazón was a constant threat, running down the wing as if he had rockets in his boots. Fran Garcia, the goal-scorer, showed he has a striker's instinct that many forwards would envy. And Joan Garcia, the goalkeeper, was an impassable wall, making saves reminiscent of Casillas in his prime. The Cules, though frustrated by the draw, couldn't help but admit that Rayo played a great game. On X, some even joked that Vallecas should be declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site for how tough it is to win there. On the Barça bench, the substitutes also had their moments. Rashford, who came on for Raphinha, brought freshness and speed, though he didn't have enough time to make a difference. In the 75th minute, the Englishman created a chance that had the Cules on their feet. He won the ball on the wing, dribbled past two defenders, and crossed into the box, but Lewandowski was just millimeters away from connecting. GAVI, who replaced Dani Olmo, brought his usual grit, running as if his life depended on it and winning back a few balls that gave the team a breath of fresh air. But despite the changes, Barça couldn't find the back of the net, and the match ended in a 1-1 draw that felt like a defeat. If this Blaugrana passion has captivated you like a last-minute Pedri pass, subscribe to the Cules channel, because here we tell every chapter of this adventure with our hearts on our sleeves and the crest on our chests. That's Barça, and there's nothing like it. In the club's offices, Joan Laporta and his team are paying close attention. The president, who has placed a big bet on Flick, knows the German is key to returning Barça to the top, but he's also aware that managing a dressing room full of stars isn't easy. Raphinha, with his talent and personality, is one of those stars who can light up the sky or stir up a storm. Laporta, always ready with a smile for the cameras, is surely talking to Flick to ensure the situation doesn't spiral, because at the end of the day, Barça is more than a team, it's a family. And like in any family, there are sometimes disagreements, but a way forward is always found. On social media, the debate rages on. The hashtags #Flick and #Raphinha are trending, with fans from around the world sharing their thoughts on what happened at Vallecas. Some Cules are calling for Raphinha to publicly apologize, while others think Flick should give him a hug and reassure him of his confidence. Memes, as always, are the life of the party, with edits of Raphinha looking at the bench like he's in a Mexican telenovela and Flick with a "I'm taking notes" face. But beyond the humor, what's clear is that this draw reminded us that football is unpredictable, and even the best teams have off days. At the Ciutat Esportiva, the players are already thinking about the next training session. Flick, as methodical as a Swiss watchmaker, has surely prepared intense sessions to correct the mistakes from Vallecas. Raphinha, for his part, will work on his precision and attitude, because he knows the affection of the Cules is earned with sweat and goals. And we, the Cules, will keep supporting, because this team, with its ups and downs, is our pride. So let's keep dreaming, singing, and believing in this Barca, which, no matter what, always makes us feel alive.